Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Doing Better Show. My name is Oliver Ox. We are having a very chill Doing Better show this week. We're taking a break in between guests to just kind of have a hangout with an old friend of the show. We got Top Hat Johnny here again. What's up, Johnny?
Hey, good to be here.
It's good to have you. And Deezy's in the house. Deezy, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Good. My man's a little low energy today. This man works constantly he's got hustles and jobs and job hustles and hustly jobs and everything. My man says very busy, and it's always impressive and inspiring. And of course, back in the engineer seat, we got Des. Des, how are you?
Spectacular. I'm still
pausing for the music. People. Listen, to each their own. Don't hate the music.
Interrupt me in my glorious intro.
So go ahead with your glorious intro. Now you've put a very high bar for your intro, Des. Now.
Hello.
That was great. Well done. Thank you.
Spectacular.
So we're just. It's been a busy week. So just trying to take it easy a little bit for the rest of our evening. I got a couple of funny videos that I wanted to enjoy with you guys. So maybe we can partake of a video or two. This is just a random. You might have seen this one already. It's too fucking good though. This is so. It's interesting as I travel around the country interacting with different accents. And it's funny when you go places. Texas is a classic for this one. You go to Texas and some people have like a Texas fucking accent, like hard. And then a lot of people just have effectively no noticeable accent. And I think the same is very true for Boston area people. Most Boston people aren't actually from Boston. There's very few people who actually live in downtown Boston. Most of us could not even afford to think about living there. So this is kind of a good one. Oh, here we go.
You don't even have hair. You don't even have hair.
I do. I got a haircut.
Not barely, bro.
You can't get a barber like that in Albany. Where you from?
In Albany? What are you talking about? You're from fucking Dedham, dude. I picked you off the fucking scale with my back. You dirty piece of garbage.
You're from fucking Dedham, dude.
That's how all my Midwestern friends think I speak all the time.
But it's such a weird thing though, because literally you can go and pick a town, go to Revere, and you'll find people in Revere who talk like normal human beings, and then you'll find a lot of people who fucking talk like that. Yeah.
Are you old enough to remember BCN?
Yeah, BCN. This is back in the day when we used to have independent radio, when there was multiple companies that owned radio stations, and small ones and big ones and whatever. But now everything's owned by three people. But yeah, so BCN was a 104.1. It was our local sort of rock alternative, sort of mainstream rock station.
Yeah, they had a skit where they a guy with the microphone went to Revere and asked for directions. He said, "Yeah, I go by, and they asked 5 different people, and you couldn't understand the damn word they said." And it was back when Miracle Ear was a thing. And if you can't hear all the words, if you can hear all the words but can't understand what they're saying, you might need Miracle Ear.
Yeah.
This guy's like, if you can hear all the words but you can't understand what they're saying, you might be in Revere, Massachusetts.
I feel like there's a mix because not everything. This is mostly for politics, but you say not everything's black and white. But I feel like there's a lot of people who have certain accents for certain words. So I feel like there's a kind of a mix.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because one of my teachers who lives on the coast but doesn't live in Boston, he has some certain accents on certain words, which is I feel like it's kind of interesting. I
don't know. I feel like the other thing that's big is a code switch thing is also happens, right? When you have different ways that you speak in different scenarios. I'm very much like that. I assume you are too, right? When you're at work trying to sell people stuff, you talk in a much different way than you would when you're with your friends, etc.
Yeah.
My wife and I are both very much like this. I think what's funny about it is if you overheard conversations that we have, we'll have 2 different conversations about different things in different places, and we'll both completely have we can have a very proper if we're talking about work stuff, we'll be very very proper English, and then if we're talking about other, we're motherfucker, it's a completely different thing, and it's the 2 exact same people with no one else involved, no other variables, just having completely different conversations. So
yeah, come to Gloucester, because the whole fucking Every scallop boat on the East Coast is in Gloucester. We got all these guys from Maine. Want to talk about not being able to stand somebody?
Well, so that's like one of those obscure accents, right? The Maine accent is a very obscure little one.
Yeah, and the further northeast you go, up into Maine, the more and more intense it gets. But then they cross a line. Like I used to work at a car dealership in Portland, and we had a kid that came to work for us, and he lived in one of those lumber towns that doesn't have a name. It's like N1743.
Oh, yep.
And he had a Canadian accent. It's like, hey, pass me your phone, eh? Like,
Oh, yeah.
It didn't sound like he was from Maine. He sounded like he was from freaking Canada.
Hey, be careful out there. The roads are all greasy. The roads are icy due to the snow. I telling, not knowing. I don't know. All breezed up out there. It's windy outside. Hey, I'm heading over to Martin's, and then we're going to check out the Freiburg Fair. We're going to a department store called Martin's, and afterwards you're going to go to the Freiburg Fair. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, or else you might get all...
Anyway, that was just a Maine one. I thought it was kind of funny because I think a lot of people have no connection for the Maine accent. What's another silly one that I wanted to show you guys? I pulled out a couple silly ones I thought would be fun. What's this one? I don't even know what this. Oh, this one might not be a silly one. This is something my wife sent me. I didn't open it yet, so let's react together. Thanks, Elise.
People come up to me like, John, how difficult was it to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu? And I tell them, I don't fucking know. I don't know jiu-jitsu. And my name ain't John. I'm Pinkbeard. And I carry a gun. Because jiu-jitsu will get you shot.
See, that's a good one. Thanks, Elise.
If you want to talk about people that have no accent, is North Dakota. I spent 14 years out in North Dakota from 92 to 14.
Oh, yeah.
92 to 06.
Yeah.
So it's 14 years I was out there. But North Dakota is populated by Germans from Russia, which is basically the Ukraine. It's a crazy history.
Yeah.
But the old Germans, they use English words with German grammar. And they'll say crazy shit like, hey, throw the cow over the fence. Some hay. Well, the cow weighs 3,000 pounds. How about I throw the bale of hay? And they have a hard times with G's and C's. So, like, yeah, I got the gloves in the glove box. Also, the only place I've ever seen where they put gloves on the glove box. So you can imagine my consternation when the old German lady's like, hey, Johnny, park the car in my crotch. Park it where? Yeah, put it in my crotch. Will it fit? That's a two-car crotch. I should mention I have a whole, like, 10-minute bit when I do stand-up about North Dakota. And the one time that I did it in Salem, Massachusetts, I don't know what the odds of this are, but there are two people from Fargo in the crowd. And I'm doing this bit, and everyone's laughing, and these people are falling out of their fucking chairs because I'm doing all of this. Like, if you've never been to North Dakota, it's kind of funny, but if you grew up there, it's hysterical. And after the set, they came up, they're like, everything you said was actually spot on, and we're from Fargo.
You must have made their entire like vacation because how often does someone from North Dakota like get pandered to in an audience, right? Like it's probably never happened before.
In the 90s, there was a theory that North Dakota didn't exist because nobody knew anyone from there.
I think the thing I was thinking with the guy, the pink beard guy, I think it's pretty funny. So there was there's always like I remember being a teenager and like there's like the tough guy thing, and you go to school right now and there's like a tough guy. Well, here's the thing: no matter how tough you are, someone else can kick your ass, right? And that guy, if I pull a gun on him, guess who's gonna win that interaction too? And if you got a bunch of people with guns, who's like there's if violence is your answer, you're always going to lose eventually, right? Someone's always going to trump you, you know, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. And it does to me, again, not to be a broken record, bring back the importance of human and civil rights. And that like we have to, because if we don't hold rights as the most important value, eventually we just descend into the bigger guy with the bigger gun wins.
Yeah, might makes right.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of, it feels like where we're heading a little bit politically is this sort of like might makes right thing. And maybe the thing that I wonder about is like through history, people will say this about privacy too, that like throughout history, 99% of human history had no privacy and no civil rights. And like, were we just in a little like 200-year aberration or whatever, or not even 200 years because I think slavery sort of canceled out a lot of the right stuff. Are we in a 100-year aberration or 150-year aberration of like privacy existing and rights being a thing, or is To me, it feels like it's the way it should be. It feels like what is right and how humans are supposed to live, and what our God or universal or whatever you want to think is the higher power. But like that this is the way we're supposed to live, and everything about my experience, my lived experience, tells me this is how people are supposed to interact with rights and with privacy. But maybe I'm just spoiled by being born in 1982 and living in this era. I don't know.
You the spoiled thing. You're not wrong. Like I can't imagine living in There's a comedian, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how I wouldn't want to raise a child in today's society. Yeah, with blankets, like kids make it through the winter now, and medicine.
Oh yeah, right.
But then on the other hand, I also understand the other side of that. Like, my girlfriend's kid is hopelessly addicted to video games at age 10, and when I was 10, I was out riding my bike, and like my kids are 24 now, and I thank God every day I didn't grow up in their era, because that was fucked up enough, and I think it's even worse now. So it's like we have the best and the worst at the same time in some ways.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But Des, what do you think? As someone who's grown up in this era,
I feel like it's because I've seen a lot of different opinions on this, and I personally believe that it's because some parents don't want a parent, so they're like, "Here, little Johnny, here, take this iPad and do whatever the fuck you want on it." Which also is another thing, which I thank you a lot for, is like the controlling of electronics and what your children are doing on electronics.
So I think you're right, but I think if you go back 30 or 40 years, you say, hey, go, if you ignore your kid, then they go out and play. And although kids going out and playing did have an ability to get in some trouble, like you generally, when you went and learned and played, you learned. Right, two little lion cubs fighting together, they like learn how to fight, and like when you send your kid out, your 7-year-old to go play in the yard, they go find some dirt and they find some worms. And,
so on that,
yeah,
basically, I think it's due to because that was socially appropriate, and because of like stranger danger and all that shit that kind of kept kids out from going outside and being left the fuck alone outside.
Yeah,
kind of resulted in people having their kids stay inside and be on their computers and shit. How it's more socially acceptable to be basically negligent to your child and just let them go on their computer and laptop all
so that is
fucking day long.
So that's an interesting point. Like the idea, because that was a big thing of like as I've grown up, the fear of the stranger, right? Like that wasn't as big of a deal. We were more neighborhood oriented, and I think now, like certainly. Not so much now because no one goes outside, so there's no fear of danger.
Yeah, also, back onto that.
Interrupter.
Sorry, no, but so back onto that.
He is your kid.
Who raised this fucking kid?
About the social acceptance. Because if you were a child who stayed inside all day, you're going to get fucking bullied. Like, if you didn't go outside, you're going to get bullied.
Right, but so there, I think you're talking about a few different things, though, right? You're talking about a cultural movement away from socializing in a larger community. So like when I was a kid, like on a summer evening, everyone was either down at the baseball field or down, like everyone was at a sort of community area. People interacted with each other. There was the risk of somebody kidnapping your kid, although that didn't happen very often, but it was a thing. And I think a lot of during that time when it used to be, when I was 9 years old, I would go and ride my bike all day, and that was an okay thing to do.
Now they take your kids away.
Nowadays, exactly, you let your kid go ride the bike all day at 9 years old, and then CPS is gonna be knocking at your door. So, I think, and culturally, that is beneficial to people that sell things. Right, like it's easier to sell things to people that are stuck in their house all day. The video game era. Like, how many kids don't have an Xbox now? I feel like most kids either have an Xbox or a PlayStation or their phone or like whatever. Like, it's very abnormal to not have some electronic device that dominates your time. When I was a kid, at least half of the kids had nothing, or like, even if you had a Nintendo just wasn't that fucking interesting. There's only so much Mario
or an Atari 2600.
Yeah, right. There's only so much
Defender so many times.
Yeah, right. So I think you're right, and the downside, it's beneficial to the system that sells us things. This is the case, and it's really beneficial to anyone who wants to fearmonger and divide. because it's very easy to be like, well, everyone who voted for Trump is a piece of shit. If you don't ever see your neighbor and realize that your neighbor who you interact with every day also voted for Trump and calm down. You know, I'm like, it's very easy to be in a very divisive, negative way when we don't have social interaction as part of the norm of everyday life. And social interaction with the people who are in your community used to be a norm of everyday life. And now you don't have to do it. And like you're saying, it's entirely socially acceptable. You're not a loser if you stay home on Friday night, right? You're not a fucking weirdo if you play video games all day long. And it used to be, when I was your age, you were a fucking loser if you stayed home on Friday night, and you were a weirdo if you stayed home and played video games all day long.
Two things. First of all, can we just take a moment and appreciate that, what did you say, you were 16? That a teenage kid recognized that his dad was actually doing a good job being a dad? Like, how fucking often does that happen?
Not very. So I will agree. Thank you. That's a nice moment.
And so to juxtapose that, my kids are 24, and I realize now that a lot of the TV shows that they watched, we've talked about this on the other podcast I was on, the television taught them not to trust your parents. Every episode was the kids at the end of the episode get thanked by their parents for doing exactly what we told you not to do.
And the dads are always morons.
Yep. And where this turned around with my stepson is I was helping him fix his car. He was in North Carolina. I'm up here, and I'm video chatting with him. I've sent him all the tools he needs, and he can't get this bolt loose. And he's like, how do I get a pipe on the end of this thing? And I'm like, you're turning the bolt the wrong way. And he's like, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Like really arrogantly. I'm like, yeah, if you're looking at the head of the bolt, you're looking at the tail end of the bolt, so it's backwards. And he took the wrench and he moved it the way I did, and it popped loose. And there was a solid 30 seconds of complete silence as his brain had to comprehend that I actually knew what the fuck I was talking about. And then it got solid again about a month and a half ago. I helped him put a timing belt in a car that didn't have timing marks. And like, you're supposed to use a special tool to lock the camshaft. And I showed him, all right, we have it pretty much on top dead center. We're going to take a pen mark here and a pen mark here, and we're going to slide this belt off, and we're going to put one right back on, and like break all the. And he's like, he you know, much like him, way more tech savvy than me. He had the entire Toyota fucking tech manual.
Yeah.
But we didn't have tool part number, whatever the part number was. And he's like, well, what the fuck are we going to do? And that, like, it's not like we can just go buy that tool. So we had to do a workaround. And I think that I'm taking my hat off to you, that you got a 16-year-old son that recognizes that you're not a fucking moron, and that you actually did, like, try.
Today he says that.
Yeah, well, look, that's why I'm grabbing the moment right now, because tomorrow it might not be the case.
Yeah, right.
I had to wait till my kid was 24 for him to realize that I'm not a fucking idiot.
That's true. I am very fortunate. Very fortunate. You got something more?
Basically, all I was trying to say was
he just made a "you're a fucking idiot" face at me.
But no, also the entire point I was trying to make on the how I acknowledge and I'm thankful for your keeping me away from electronics as long as you could.
Somewhat, yeah.
Look how that turned out.
Yeah, right.
Considering what I'm doing currently. But no, the thing I was trying to make is the descent of children's, like, not content, but how quickly kids can turn to, like, not so good content.
Yeah.
Because I remember you download what the fuck, Bark or whatever?
Yeah.
On my phone, so I wasn't watching fucking porn or whatever.
Your mother did all that.
Yeah, still parent, regardless. But no, I feel, because it's, I saw a statistic somewhere that said 9 was the average age children were looking at pornography, right? And I feel like that's such a common thing. And I feel like that's kind of a fuck thing, because I don't think 9-year-olds should be looking at adults fucking. It's just
probably not.
No, so that's what I'm saying.
And to your point, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm gonna be honest with you. We used to go down the dump and go through the that was the thing.
Wait, that's what we did too.
Yeah. And we figured out that the dump guy was going through everyone's trash and had all the titty mags hidden, and we found them.
Were the pages sticky?
It was. Plead the fifth. But there's a big difference between titty mags and 9 guys fucking some little chick. Like
yes.
And that was never available to me, and thank God.
I also think there's a certain. You make a good point because I think there's something about being exposed to sexual things before sexual maturity when you're not wired for that. Like obviously, not saying that just because you're sexually mature you should be having sex or anything. Some girls reach sexual maturity 11 years old. Definitely don't do that. But the point is, I think if you at 7, 8, 9 years old prior to sexual maturity see intercourse and other things like that, like it fucks your brain up. Like there's a reason that's
why we're putting it in the school libraries, and they were yelling at people for pointing that out because how dare they point that out, because we know better for your kids than you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get the side of wanting to have people be educated and accepting, but the appropriate thing for a kid is like, oh, that's adult stuff. Don't worry. People love who they love, and that's adult stuff.
Bro, if you're not 18, you can't watch a rated R movie. Like,
yep.
Why isn't it the same at a library? That stuff.
No, I mean, I think you make a good point. I think the
you can watch porn though. Like, that's crazy.
Well, right, but so a lot of these books that we're talking about, if we're going to talk about the content, like they're not pornography. I'm going to disagree with you that some of them straight up. It's like penthouse letters. So no. So no, don't. Sorry. Let me. The stated intention is not pornography. That doesn't mean that they're not pornography. I think that's a relative. What turns you on and whatever is kind of a relative thing. So.
Right here in Massachusetts, in Burlington, I've watched several videos on this.
Yeah.
They had a very sexually explicit survey that they gave these kids, like, have you had vaginal sex? Explicit description of that. Have you had oral sex? Explicit description of that. Have you had anal sex? And lots of parents opted their kids out, and the kids were still forced to take the survey.
Is a lot of those are federal too? It's related to some federal funding, health funding.
Well, I don't care who's pushing it. If first of all, the kids were too young. Second of all, the parents opted the kids out, and the kids were still exposed to it, and there doesn't seem to be any consequence for that happening.
So the bottom line on the story that you're talking about, yes, if parents said no and the school went ahead and did it anyway, I don't give a fuck what the issue was. If you don't want your kid, exposed to oranges and clementines, then you should be able to have a right to say, I don't want my kid being exposed to oranges and clementines. Like, so that is certainly, I agree with you 100% on that. I think. The argument from the other side is that it's about people's identity and making kids okay that people identify different ways and that different types of sexuality exist. My argument against that would be, okay, then just tell them, hey, little Bobby, like some boys love boys. That's all you need to know, right? Some boys don't look like the other boys, and that's all you need to know. And like, I don't think we need to go in like anal, whatever. That's what you got.
I also feel like this also. The other part of this is it doesn't help that the glorification of like OnlyFans models and all that other shit, like, because I remember seeing a bunch of videos about people saying shit like, oh, how much money you can make doing shit on fucking OnlyFans or whatever, and also on top of that, the vigorous amount of promotion on OnlyFans, of OnlyFans content on multiple platforms.
That's a
YouTube,
good point. No,
Twitch, Instagram.
I feel like
it's fucking horrible.
No, I feel like that is very true.
I feel like every other post I see, I'm getting fucking eye raped by a bitch with a fat ass. It's horrible.
So that's your algorithm, bro.
It's your algorithm. Own that. No, but as like there is a lot of. You are right that there's a whole lot of money going into directing you in that direction.
And other thing is, they make it super easy because I don't know if any of you guys know what ASMR is.
Yeah.
That's an entire other, because there's a lot of people who do that on YouTube and then link their OnlyFans, porn, whatever, onto their YouTube account and whatever, which can lead to these minors, these young children, premature, mature, getting to that content, which you said will fuck up with their mentality and fuck up with their head, which kind of can result in, I feel like, people getting raped, molested.
Maybe.
Kid on kid.
Sure. I think those are all legitimate things. So I think the issue here, though, is we seem to always want to justify why people need to mind their own business and treat other people with respect. And I think sort of what this stuff. I think a lot of the people promoting this identity stuff around sexuality, sexual identity stuff, are sort of making like, well, we have to show that it's okay for this and this is normal and whatever. But it's irrelevant. Like whether or not something is normal or you like it, it doesn't change whether those people have rights. Everyone has rights. Everyone should be treated with respect and decency. I don't need to know what you do in the bedroom to decide whether I should treat you with it's none of my fucking business. So if we all mind our own business and treated everyone else with respect regardless, we wouldn't have to get into any of the sexual stuff. And we wouldn't have to tell 9-year-olds, well, some people like to lick buttholes and some people don't like it's irrelevant. Everyone deserves, we can give everyone rights regardless.
Yeah, I think it's crossed over into recruitment in the name of empowerment.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to overread into and overmake a. I think there are well-intentioned people on both sides of this issue.
I'll agree with you. And I also think that there are people with very nefarious.
Probably.
Yeah, but also I'm going to take my hat off to you again. Whoever thought a 16-year-old would just say what you just said? Like, you did a good job, dude.
I'm just very well informed. If I'm gonna,
I'm just very well informed. It's so modest.
If I'm gonna suck my own cock, I'm very well informed.
Good Lord. Oh, child.
Maybe it's not the old man. You have a level of insight that I would not expect out of a 16-year-old kid.
Also, I think the level of nefarious shit that the porn industry does is also kind of insane, with damn near grooming like underage girls to kind of get them into the industry. And I remember you telling me about some shit about how in a lot of the content they do certain editing to make certain people look a little underage.
Yeah, they'll edit
which will lead once again to more shitty things happening, let alone it be content or actions that adults do to children.
Right. So, but again, I think we've had this sort of like sexual liberation over the last 50 whatever years you want to call it, a move away from traditional church values into a more laissez-faire. Everything is great, and I think half of that is right and half of that is wrong. The part of mistreating people, excluding people from society, denying people rights because they're outside of the norm is wrong. And that was the thing that we fixed, and we should letting people marry who they want to marry, letting people do what they want to do in the privacy of their own home in their bedroom is the correct way of behaving. That does not mean everything's normal, and it does not mean everything is equally wonderful moving forward, right? I'm going to risk being offensive for a second, but if we were all gay, it would be if 8 billion people were suddenly gay, it would be a major problem for humanity. Let's be honest about that fact, right? There's a procreative act that is inherently heterosexual, and we can science it up a little bit and fix some of that stuff, but I guess the point I'm making is everyone, the number one point I'm making, everyone should be able to live the life they want to be the person they are, identify, and as long as everything you do is consenting with other consenting adults, everyone should do whatever they want. But it doesn't mean all things are equal.
But the key word is adult.
Adult, yes.
Yeah, we don't need to be giving. We don't need to be giving surveys to 10, 11, 12-year-olds that crosses into recruitment.
Sure, we don't need to be recruiting them in the other direction, though, to be hateful against people that are different.
No,
right?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying you are, of course.
No, okay, yeah. Why are we sexualizing kids that are 9, 10, 11, 12 years old?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Essentially, I agree with you 100%. The other point I make, and I make this point a lot when people complain about the cuts of the DOE, which is one of the things that Trump's done that I don't have any problem with. And so both with this stuff and with the sexual stuff have you seen the state of the kids coming out of American public schools? The level of education that we're imparting on people over 10, 11, 12, 13 years of public education. What a third of high school graduates are functionally illiterate. I know none of them can do math because I go to grocery stores and interact with cashiers, etc. I think we have much bigger, more relevant fish to fry in public schools. Really, we have time to be giving butt sex surveys to 9-year-olds. Shouldn't you be teaching those 9-year-olds some math? Because they can't fucking add. right? And like, shouldn't you be teaching them the right? Because they can't put a sentence together, and it seems like their only solution is ChatGPT at this point in time. So like, maybe we should be teaching critical thinking and reading, writing, and arithmetic, not to sound like an old man, instead of butt stuff.
What's the song that says like only dumb people are reading? Because I feel like that's kind of basically what's happening right now. Is that
Harvey Danger?
Yeah. I feel like that's what everyone's doing. Like it's kind of dumb. It's bad that all these stupid, and then also because since I'm around all these, pardon the word, retarded teenagers.
You're not allowed to use that word.
I don't care. I used it, and it's a perfect word. Because there's so many examples I could talk about in my classroom of. I don't know, like, were white people slaves? Like, this is the most, like, someone randomly asked that in world history class, and I can't think of anything on top of my head, but there's so many people who I know that are just on a different level of brain dead, and just, I think I was talking to you about this, about how I want to do my own stuff because I want to become super, like you said, I don't have to be dependent on a ChatGPT to make... I feel like it's kind of a horrible thing that's happening, and like you said, I feel like instead of, once again, credit to you for teaching me all this shit about learning math and all that. But like, I don't want to be like these kids who are, instead of learning math, are learning about gay anal sex.
I would say that we could focus. We can
put our energy to different things and maybe teach them about that when they're of sexual maturity.
Well, right, and I just think by people staying in their lane a little bit, like teachers, work on teaching, and everybody, just mind your own business. Like, so many of our social problems would just be solved by everybody minding their own business. Like,
but I hold the moral high ground, so therefore I am righteous and above reproach. I didn't like it in the '90s when the Christian right and I go to church every Sunday.
Yeah,
I did in my 20s when the conservative right Christians were like we're gonna make America moral again.
Yeah,
like, I didn't like that, and now the pendulum has swung to the same extreme to the other way. I don't like to see that.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel the exact same way on the social issues. It feels like exactly what happened. That we were in the '90s. It was you were fighting back against the silent majority, the religious right, who were trying to control speech, control the direction of all conversations, and now you have exactly the same character, exactly the same disrespect for individuality, exactly the same inability to mind your own business from the people on the opposite side, right? Who are like, their religion is, scientism and, and whatever the trendy, woke thing of the day is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
did you ever think you'd see a day where the most punk thing you can do is go to a Latin mass on a Sunday?
No, that's true. That is very true. All right, I want to show us. Let's see if we can find one more funny thing, and then before we call it a day.
One thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I know that I sometimes come off as like transphobic because of some of the things I talk about. I've been accused of that. I'm alive today because of a trans woman.
Really?
Yeah. A person that I've known since I was 14. I didn't know it at the time was trans and lived a dual life as I won't dead name them, but they're Cheryl now. I knew them as their previous person until I was in my 50s, and nobody knew about this. And she came out, in true freaking Top Hat Johnny fashion. I missed all the Facebook stuff that they had posted.
Yeah,
and we were having this group that we were with was having a reunion, and in the group chat is this picture of this person in a white dress with tits and hair, and I was like, wow, he's got hair. And I thought it was Photoshop. And I'm like, and everyone's and the comment is, does anyone have a problem with this? And everyone's like, why the fuck are you wearing white after Labor Day? What the fuck? And I'm like, I love these guys. They're fucking great. So we get to where we're having our get together, and I'm completely oblivious to the fact that this is Cheryl's coming out party, and I'm sitting there talking to all my friends like I'm talking to you guys, and suddenly this stunning woman in a black dress sweeps up and sits down, and I'm just like, and time stopped, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Apparently that wasn't fucking Photoshop. I have no idea what's going on, but this person's really important to you, so you should probably find out what you should call them. And everyone's looking at me like, oh my God, like, is he going to freak out? And I'm like, I have to ask you to forgive my slow uptake, but I'm guessing you don't go by your old name anymore. And then end up the next 2 hours, I had this wonderful conversation with this person, absolutely wonderful conversation. And since then, like, it changed again, just like Wilmer Montero, completely changed my whole outlook on this thing. In an online therapy group that I'm in, there is a trans man that's in their 20s. Whole families turned their back on him, and I'm just like, look, bud, we're 1,000 miles away from each other, but if you need a mentor, I will do for you the same as I do for my stepsons. I know how hard it is to go from boyhood to manhood. I can't imagine going from girlhood to manhood. And mostly what I do is I help him fix his truck.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
like buy these tools, do this, do that. But
Yeah.
like, if you got any questions, I was like, hey, as a man, how should I do this? I'm there for him.
And I think this is something that I think about a lot, and maybe this is where we're at actually. It's we're pushed to judge people based on whether they're in our group or not in our group, whether they believe the right things that we believe or don't believe the right things that we don't believe, and whatever. And that's a very divisive thing inherently, because it means you have to see yourself as different from people that are in some other group from you, and that you and that if you don't agree with someone entirely, and I don't think there's anybody in the 8 billion people in the world I agree with entirely, that you shouldn't join and be one with them. And that we should judge people based on, and this happened a lot. If you voted for blah, unfriend me, because da-da-da, right? Like, and I understand why people feel that way, and I get it. The most important thing, and this is the thing that we've talked a little bit about my parenting tonight, I think it's the thing that I've done my very best to impart on my kids above all else, is that the thing you should be judged on is the way that you treat people. That's the bottom line. Are you good to people? Are you honest? Do you take care of people? Do you look out for them? Or are you a selfish dickhead? Do you throw people under the bus to get ahead? Do you lie, cheat, and steal to get what you want? And that's for me, that's the most important thing. And when I thought about raising my own kids, and of course, everybody wants your kids to be successful and handsome and all those things. And there's all these surface things that we'd all prefer our kids to be. But none of those things are even in the this much important compared to, is my kid a decent human being? Do they treat people well? And that's what it comes. I don't care what your like you say, your political views on a certain issue are irrelevant if you treat people well, or in the other way, if you treat people shitty. I don't know if you have the most accepting, wonderful progressive views. If you treat people like shit, you're a shitty person. And vice versa. You could be I've met some of the most conservative, because we talked about growing up in the 90s when there was this sort of religious right movement that turned a lot of us against religious people, quite frankly. And I had that bias. And I've met so many wonderful, incredibly conservative, incredibly religious people who I assumed were going to be judgmental and nasty or whatever because of the Pat Buchanan and such, right? And are wonderful, wonderful human beings. So your politics matter far less than how you treat people and what you support. And the only way that your politics really matter is if you're supporting other people treating people shitty. That's my 2 cents for the day. That's my last words. Any last words from the rest of you wonderful people? Deezy, you're beat. You've had a long week, huh? You doing some recharging this week?
Yeah.
Anything exciting you're gonna do to recharge yourself?
No, just rest.
Just prioritize rest and eating healthy and taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Des, what do you got
To do this weekend?
No, in general, you got any last words for the day?
Shit.
That's not a good last word, Des.
Okay. Go Celts. Hope we go for the championship.
There you go. All right, that's a good one.
That's about it.
Sports, baby. And Top Hat joining our special guest for today. What do you got? Any last words?
For a guy that walked in a right-wing echo chamber for almost a decade, whether you're lean right or lean left, find someone on the other side of the aisle and actually get to fucking know him.
Yeah.
It is life-changing. I have I will openly admit I live a right-leaning lifestyle, but I have lots of I'll say this: the pastor of my church, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He preached on the Good Samaritan, and like I always thought Samaritans were just good people. No, Samaritans and Israelis in the time of Jesus were like Hamas and Israelis.
Yeah,
it was that bad. And he said to tell that, this is before the Israeli Hamas blew up, because he probably would frame it this way. But at the time, he said, if we were going to preach this sermon today, like if it was an event that happened today, one of those individuals is wearing a red MAGA hat and is worshiping Trump, and the other one is a trans person. That's how far apart these people are. And if someone, and who is who depends on who you are. Whether it's the rescuer is the Trump guy or the rescuer is the trans guy, depends on where you're at. And I, like a lot of his sermons, I felt really challenged to like, okay, I'm going to look across the aisle and be like, they're not the, you're not, it used to be I would look at someone and be like, oh, you believe such and such, you're the enemy. Now I'm like, I don't really care what you believe. I don't have a beef with you until you do something that gives me a reason to have a beef with you.
Yeah. Yep, that's a great point. Your neighbor, somebody who different from you, is not your enemy. We have very, very few enemies in this world. We are very blessed, and if you want to find them, you look up to people far, far above you in the economic and government organization, because those are the people who actually impact your life. Your neighbor being different than you, your neighbor being a devout Christian, or your neighbor being a trans person has literally zero effect on your life. But the politician who's stealing your money and giving it to BlackRock and bombing children in other countries with it because he convinced you that your neighbor is your enemy, that's your enemy. Des, you already had your last word, damn it.
Yeah,
Go
okay,
ahead.
so I want to expand on that. I would say don't get mad at the cogs, get mad at the engineer.
Okay, that works too. Yeah, all right, cool. All right, on that note, we are going to call it a week. Next week, we have, what's Kyle's last name that we have coming next week? I have this written down somewhere. We got a great, Amberly will be back. Let's wish a happy 30th birthday to Amberly. And we have one of her friends joining us next week, whose name I had written down somewhere, and I no longer do. I just have his name as Kyle. He will be joining us to talk more of these issues, probably more from the other perspective, actually. So we'll have a great left-right balance in these 2 weeks on the Doing Better show. We'll be back next week, 6 o'clock. Me and Beth, we're Doing Better News. If you have any local events, local happenings, local things you want to plug, let us know. Hit us up, doingbettershow@gmail.com or at any of the socials. We would love to have you add to the show. If you want to join us and talk about something, we'd love to have you for that too. Then at 7, we'll have our Sunday Sanity Check. We'll spout off about the issues of the day. I'll get your head straight. And then 8 o'clock, we'll have our Doing Better show with Kyle, who is going to tell us all about his work. More details to come. Please make sure you're following us on all the I think we have them all, right? We got everything. We're definitely on TikTok and Instagram and X. I think those are the important ones anyway. So please make sure you follow us at Doing Better Show. Like and share and subscribe and all those cheesy things that everyone says. We'll see you back next week.